For prizes, you know, we got like tickets to Alice Cooper, great books, and signed on a duty photo and everything else. So go and see Rosie at the back, and she'll sort you out some tickets and stuff. And we'll be starting in about 10 minutes, by the way. Thank you. Simon Heath. By the way, thanks also to our sponsor, Brighton Film School. We've got some of the students here tonight. Simon Heath, as some of you know, of course, leading television producer and done some great dramas with Well Productions and including Line of Duty and Bodyguard. And he's executive producer on those and other shows. Before we welcome Simon to the stage, let's look at a couple of the shows that he and Well Productions produced.
Status 0 phone suckers. Control Sierra Zulu 79, status 0 phone suckers. Lavender is TA, Lavender is TA. 4779, that tobacco too. 379. Who's lost lady? Who's sitting tight for backup? Suggest you do the same. It's okay, man. It's okay. The villains can't get through the armor plating. It's okay. It's okay.
Nelson Rowe, I'm arresting you on suspicion of abduction.
Can you tell me the last time you saw your daughter, Mr. She was 3 last time I saw her. You think this could be me?
Please come back.
Whoever grabbed her up knows who I am too. He knows me. I don't know if you're anywhere near, or if I'm anywhere near to you. I am coming for you. All I want is peace. This is business. It's very good business. They're bringing in girls big time. You tell from me. We found another town. Dad, you don't do that. Another town. No little business. Dad. Stay there! Chuck your man! What did you do? I thought what I had to do. Come on, look at you.
I'm just thinking now, what's happening now? Can you handle this?
Of course I can handle it. Who you are is falling away. But when you try to do it, trying to make me out mad or something? What? You're here, please. Is your head full of something? Is that what it is? All officers, go to your desks. Police be questioned by an AC-12 caseworker. Police be obliged to surrender all materials relating to Operation Trapdoor and the investigation into the murder of Timothy Ifield. Failure to comply will be a breach of your duties and responsibilities under police conduct regulations and may lead to a misconduct charge under said regulations. If you've got plans, cancel them. This takes as long as it takes.
File keywords are trapdoor and Ifield.
Cut the door. No one goes in or out without my say so.
Thank you for your cooperation. All relevant files to be suspended for copy by
Please welcome Simon Heath. We can hear you nice and clear.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you for coming. Good dinner, wasn't it?
Very nice dinner, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
so I'm glad you came back because I was a bit worried.
Engagement, you know, I don't come from the business side of the industry, I come from the editorial creative side, so I'm always writing, but I haven't written a script for, nearly 20 years now.
Was TV always a big interest of yours? Like, was it something you wanted to work in, maybe when you were a lot younger?
I'll be honest, I never thought I'd ever get the possibility of working in television. Ordinary working class family in Birmingham, we had one O-level in the family, I got to grammar school, got O-levels and A-levels. The thing that looked within reach was newspaper journalism. So the thing I thought, well, I know what I want to do. I want to write football reports. I want to work for the Birmingham Evening Mail, covering Birmingham City, and that was my dream. And sadly, it never came true. I ended up having to do this.
But you love it. You do you love?
I do. I'm joking. I love it. I mean, it was a fantastic break. I mean, it was one of those. I think you talk to lots of people in our industry, unless you have the benefit of privilege which might come from an education or knowing someone in the industry or having a family member who's in the industry, when you talk to the people who haven't had those things, you get that moment of huge, great fortune, which I had. Years ago, The Guardian on a Monday had a Media Guardian section in the back where a lot of little small ads, for jobs, and you'd write up for them and never get anywhere. And there was one for a trainee script editor for a company called Zenith North, whatever that was, script I didn't even know. I applied and went through a very long process of writing in, and then they tested you on certain things, and then I went up for an interview and realised it was going to be to work on Wycott Grove, which I hadn't watched at that point. So I was about 23, so it was sort of, people had started after I'd stopped watching children's TV. And then, never expected the call to come to say, we're offering you the job. And the great thing about that story is, in terms of doors opening or doors closing, is a year later, the woman who I took over from, and in fact she left the job much earlier than anyone anticipated, so I was suddenly from trainee, I had 6 weeks, and then I was in at the deep end having to do it. But a year later she told me that they'd offered the job to someone else first, and they turned it down. Because they had, I think the story was they were a director and they'd managed to get a short film financed or whatever. So, on those small things, a lot turns.
Was there a programme or a drama, anything? Were you a particular fan of any show, TV series as a kid, really?
I love Brookside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't, the Corrie was too dated and northern for me. Midlanders, we don't like the north really, don't want to say. Don't really like the Midlands either. But Brookside felt like it was a contemporary voice. It was speaking to, me as a teenager, and the parents were recognisable as my parents. And, with hindsight, you look at the brilliant writers they had in it, Jimmy McGovern, Frank Cottrell Boyce, many other great writers. So that was something, I tune into, every week. And then doing that because I want to focus on working with writers, working with actors, working with directors.
What do you do today? Can you give us an idea of what you did at work? What did you do at work today, Simon? Yeah, you come home from school. What lessons did you have at work? Was it?
I've spent a lot of my day being interrupted from writing a pitch document that I need to write that needs to go out to America ahead of next week because I'm going to LA to pitch our new show that we've got commissioned for BBC.
Oh,
that sounds really grand, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds good.
But generally, Tim was asking me this, and we as a company, you talk about distinguishing features. I think one of the things is we're very British. A lot of our output is very rooted in this country. We've done very little kind of fantasy or sci-fi. We've done some period drama, but not much. But we're very rooted in contemporary Britain, and we haven't done a lot of things with, in a kind of American-facing way. But we're now in a world where, in order to finance the show that I'm going out to talk about, we need an American partner. So I've got to say to them, here's the show, it's all set in Britain. Do you fancy it? And they'll go, can there be an American in it? And I'll go, no. And then we'll see how that goes. So as you can imagine, the pitch document's going to be really important. So that was today. I met. What else did I do? I met a recent NFTS graduate and she's trying to break into producing. And I try and do at least a couple of those meetings every week. It's hard because at the time, your diary gets filled up. But I remember, when Tony Garney agreed to meet me, how important that was to my career. So I want to try and help people in the same way.
Talking of writers, how did you get to meet or know of Jed Mercurio? For those who don't know, he went on to write Line of Duty and Bodyguard, and before that, Bodies and Critical, which I think was on Sky, and other stuff as well.
So, of course, Jed started his career at Royal Productions. So, as a junior doctor, he applied to write. Tony Garnett decided he wanted to do a medical drama about junior doctors, and he thought the best way of getting authenticity was to get a junior doctor to write it. So he put an advert. It was an advert in the Lancet, and Jed replied, and John Hodge replied of Trainspotting fame. At that point, John Hodge got Shallow Grave greenlit, so Jed got the gig and he wrote Cardiac Arrest for the company, 3 series of that for BBC One. It's a brilliant sort of blackly comic drama about being a junior doctor in a failing NHS hospital. And so I knew of him through that, and then he'd gone off to do other things, and we met in Leeds while we were filming up there. He was doing Bodies, and we were doing the show up there. And we got on quite well, and he said he wanted to do a show about police corruption. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm from the West Midlands with a home in police corruption. We wrote the rule book. And so he came to us with the sort of core idea that we're doing, and then we started developing it. But, in those days, we weren't occupying the position we are now, and it took quite a long time to sell the show into the BBC.
Obviously, the first series of Line of Duty was broadcast on BBC Two 7 years ago this month, I watched it from the beginning and always really loved the show. Week on week, and more and more people were watching it on catch up and then watching it live, it was a fantastic experience, really. Some people maybe it's people who run big stations like the BBC, are cynical of Netflix and other streaming outlets, as it were, but is it something you embrace, really? Bodyguard's on there now. I don't know if Line of Duty's still on there, but it's on the iPlayer at least.
Line of Duty is on Netflix in the UK. 9 all territories. I mean, the interesting thing with Bodyguard was the experience of having gone on the BBC, then in October, which is literally only 6 weeks after it finished on the BBC, it was on Netflix, but it was on Netflix across the entire globe. And suddenly to have that experience of something being released simultaneously in every country, and the kind of new wave of interest that it brings to a show, was amazing. And Tim and I were talking earlier about that, and how that has changed, and is continuing to change our industry, both film and television. The days where you would sell something territory by territory, and something would be on here in a year, and then 2 years later it gone to, and it never really got any momentum. Now suddenly you can go from being a UK hit to a global hit, as much because of the sort of platform and the technology as the fact, you know, we're not making the show for an American market. You know, it was made totally with the BBC in mind.
So Jed Mercurio, probably the most famous TV writer in the country at the moment. What is there something that runs throughout his writing that makes his work so appealing, really?
I think he is brilliant at keeping the audience guessing, because he keeps us guessing.
I know.
I think, you know, he is someone who understands the power of getting an audience to ask questions rather than keep giving them answers. And I think that's the power of great narrative.
Some would say with Jed's writing, probably especially Line of Duty, maybe the last series, that he doesn't reveal enough sooner than, you know, it's like, oh come on, you know, I know it's brilliant, and I'm not being critical at all, but it's like so many questions about, prime example, obviously, who is H, but we now kind of know who isn't, as it were.
Yes.
But it can be frustrating but compelling at the same time, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think, look, the figures and the stats, and we get this thing from the BBC called AI, which is the Audience Appreciation Index, and we're continually up there with the top shows. So I think, yes, there's a proportion of the audience that might take to Twitter outraged they didn't get all the answers they wanted, but I feel like it's in a serial drama, you don't want all the answers. You know, for something to keep going, to have forward momentum, there have to be fresh questions. There has to be a desire to know more, and you know, it's part of our job with Jed that we kind of pace that out, you know, so that you're getting certain questions answered, but not everything.
2 questions for fans of Bodyguard and Line of Duty are: with Bodyguard, do you know, will there be another series? Jed, when he's asked about it, he says, oh, we're in discussions, or we're talking about it with the BBC.
We're in discussions, we're talking about it with the BBC.
But I'm wondering why, because a lot of the time, if a show is a big hit, it's commissioned quickly usually, isn't it? But there's some complication there, isn't there?
It's just a very big show to get all of the moving parts back together again, and the when and the how and the resources that it needs, that needs a lot of conversations. So that's the reason, really. You know, it's not a simple turn up and, you know, thank you Vicky for the hire of the hall. You know, it's there's a lot to do.
No, it's not like doing this. Well, I say that, it's not easy doing this. So Line of Duty, we know there'll be another one, a 6th.
That's right, yeah.
Do we yet know if there'll be a 7th? I think Jed would like to do another one.
Well, we're discussing that. We're discussing that. At the moment, we're focusing on season 6, which we'll shoot next year. So that's exciting, and Jed is thinking about that at the moment, and we'll get together again soon to talk about where it's all headed.
I just want to mention Kate Rose James, who is the casting director on Line of Duty and Bodyguard and other shows as well. I think casting is an undervalued element of film and TV, and it's so important, isn't it, really? She played such a key part in those series.
Absolutely. I remember approaching her to do the first season of Line of Duty, and she always teases me about how small our offices were at that point, because, you know, we'd had a fairly, you know, barren few years, and then Line of Duty came along, and suddenly we're back up there again as it goes. But, you know, she's been incredibly loyal to us, both through Line of Duty. She cast The Fear for us, and she also cast Bodyguard. So, you know, and she works really hard. I mean, I think it's easy. Lots of people have opinions about casting. From the person at the very top of the BBC downwards, everyone thinks they know who should be in the shows. And she holds her nerve, and she fights for people she thinks are going to bring something different and original, and that in the end draws an audience in. You don't always have to think about the tried and tested and obvious names, you know. an audience responds sometimes just to the right person in the right role.
And she did Sherlock as well, before, you know, the stuff with Well Productions. And I interviewed her earlier in the year, and brilliant. You know, it's just interesting. But she was a great guest at my quite defunct London event. So,
When you get really good actors like that, you do want to work with them again. You know, it's lovely finding the new talent, but also, you know, the chance to work with some of those guys multiple occasions is fantastic.
I liked, which was a Well production, the Bletchley Circle, which I've been not quite binge watching, but I saw a few episodes recently on Netflix. And I didn't think it was the kind of thing I would watch really. It's sort of set after the Second World War, and it's a group of women who worked with Alan Turing and stuff. But I really like it. You know, it's a really good drama. That.
Yeah, it's a great show, and it was it was probably the first series we'd had on ITV for nearly 20 years. You know, ITV weren't necessarily a channel that we worked with, and it was down to my colleague Jake Lushington who developed the concept and sold the show in and then made the show, and it really caught people's imaginations, you know, and that mix of the factual basis of the women who worked at Bletchley Park as code breakers with the idea of these mysteries that they were then solving, I think really grabbed the audience.
And again, it's a great cast, you know.
Yeah, lovely cast. Anna Maxwell Martin, who, you know, we dragged
I've
into
seen
line
her
duty
in
as
something
well.
recently.
Yeah, we dragged her in. Everyone has to do line duty now. It's like national service.
Yes.
For an actor of a certain age. You haven't done it, you know, you get barred from equity.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who might want to work in TV production, whatever kind of level, whether they want to work at your company, Well Productions, or they want to be a producer? I don't know how much it might have changed in the last 20 odd years since you began with the company, but is there any advice?
I think one thing I would say to people is that everyone, you know, a lot of people when they look at the industry, they rightly think about writing, they think about directing, they think about producing, you know, the big jobs, but there's a huge range of roles in the industry, whether it be casting director, whether it be director of photography, whether it be costume designer, makeup designer, and from the position I sit in, there are not enough people coming into those craft jobs, you know, and I think, you know, if you know, not everybody can work in scripts, and not everyone wants to work in scripts, but these jobs are, you know, some fantastically talented people coming to those worlds. But I don't know that, you know, if you're a kid coming out of college at 18, you necessarily know about those jobs and how good and satisfying and brilliant they can be if you get the opportunity. And I think, you know, as an industry, we need to look at the way we train those roles and those departments because, you know, they're neglected. You'll always get loads of people want to be writers, loads of people want to be directors, and then it's, you know, it's just about graft and talent and luck and all those things that come into it. But those other roles, I feel like, you know, there's some, you know, there's a gap there. There's a skills gap that needs to be filled, and there are opportunities there if people can be given the chance to train and find entry level jobs in those departments.
Had you ever wanted to perform yourself? You've written, but did you ever want to be an actor or be?
Oh, I did some acting at college. I was brilliant.
Really?
But I could never do anything other than a Birmingham accent. So I thought I was doing sort of like, you know, posh in an Alan Bennett.
How would that go?
Fucking hell, that's a brilliant Birmingham accent you did.
How'd it go? Go on, do Alan Bennett.
I'm not even going to try.
Okay. Get him another beer, quick.
And then, so I you know, I was good enough that I got roles in the kind of university plays, and we took a play up to Edinburgh. But my memory of the 3 weeks, and we did a show every day at 2 o'clock, was I was too nervous before the show to eat, and after the show I would just drink, and then by the evening I was hungover, and I basically had a stomach ulcer after about 3 days, you know, and I just kept topping myself up with alcohol, and then more nerves, and then more alcohol.
God.
So I thought, well, this isn't really going to be the life for me.
No.
So the acting, yeah, that was the end.
So your current job, what's the best thing about? What do you find most enjoyable? Really, what part?
I love getting a new show commission. It's very exciting.
Good luck
Because
next
you
week.
work really hard to do that. It takes so long, and you sometimes just feel like you're banging your head against the brick wall. So I think getting a new show greenlit it takes a bit of beating, and then when a show's a hit, obviously that's thrilling, really, because look, you know, I've made plenty of shows that haven't necessarily had a big audience, still love those shows. They may have had great reviews, they may have been, you know, nominated for awards, but you know, having the big hits of the last few years has been fantastic as well. But you know, equally, I'm now of an age, you know, I'm nearly 30. Not quite.
We're the same age.
You know, there's a lot of pleasure with bringing new talent through. So the younger members of my team and younger writers that we're working with, that's exciting. You know, to see that talent coming through and seeing people, you know, finding their potential.
And you might have touched upon it, but is there a part that really gets to you that doesn't go that well? You know, what's challenging or what could be really frustrating when it doesn't really go how maybe it should or you want it to go? Is it when you don't get a commission and you put a lot?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain shows that you think how, you know, why didn't that get commissioned? You know, what those fuckers. You know, that can be